The Galactic Consensus and Humanity's Emergence ****. The Galactic Consensus had reigned unchallenged for millennia, its member species basking in the quiet arrogance of perfected supremacy. Theirs was a civilization built on the bones of conquered empires, their fleets gleaming monuments to seamless efficiency, their politics a well-oiled machine of cold pragmatism. To them, the galaxy was a puzzle solved, its corners mapped, its threats neutralized. Newly discovered societies were either absorbed or erased, a choice presented as benevolence, enforced as ritual. When faint signals from a remote blue planet reached the ears of a low-tier diplomat named Zorth, the news was met with bureaucratic indifference. Another primitive species, another routine assimilation. Zorth's report to the Council was precise, unemotional. Humanity's history flickered across holographic displays. The bloody arcs of world wars, the mushroom clouds of nuclear dawns, the fractious geopolitics of divided species. The consensus noted their persistence, the way they clawed from rubble to satellites, from moon landings to Mars colonies, but dismissed it as a predictable byproduct of evolutionary aggression. No unified government, no warp drives, no energy shields. Pathetic, yet quaint. They lacked the elegance of true advancement, sneered one counselor, her voice like static. Zorth hesitated. He highlighted anomalies. Global defense pacts formed overnight during crises. Wartime innovations repurposed for peace, a species-wide reflex to unite when cornered. The Council silenced them with a vote. First contact protocols were activated, not as dialogue, but theater. On Earth, no fanfare greeted the discovery of alien probes skimming Neptune's orbit. Governments shared data in hushed rooms. Soldiers drilled in silence. Engineers worked under false patents. Asteroid mining drones were quietly retrofitted with tungsten payloads. Warships still smelling of lunar dust received cloaking upgrades. Civilians, though unaware, adapted instinctively. Subways became bunkers. Satellites turned to sentinels. And children's VR games subtly taught orbital mechanics. There were no grand speeches, no named leaders. Only a bone-deep understanding that survival demanded the weight of billions. When consensus scouts breached the asteroid belt, humanity's welcome committee was not a delegation, but a force of railgun barrels hidden in the shadow of Phobos. Their operators anonymous, their triggers fingerless. The aliens' arrival was a spectacle of light and sound, their ships hovering over Mars like jeweled daggers. Zorth's transmission echoed across frequencies, a rehearsed blend of threat and grandeur. Earth's reply was a burst of code, a collage of every language, every anthem, every ceasefire treaty ever signed. The Council ordered the strike anyway. Plasma fire vaporized the lunar outpost, its destruction broadcast live. Seconds later, the consensus fleet shuddered as kinetic rods launched from barren rocks tore through hulls. Human drones, stripped of identifiers, swarmed in chaotic patterns, overloading shields with electromagnetic pulses stolen from dead satellites. By the time the aliens retreated, Zorth's sensors had cataloged the impossible, a species that weaponized everything. In consensus debriefings, blame was deflected, excuses polished. Zorth replayed the battle in private. Human ships had adapted mid-fight, rerouting power from engines to guns, jamming signals with pirated alien tech. Their drones sacrificed themselves not as martyrs, but as distractions. The Council dismissed it as desperation. Zorth rewound the footage again. And again, he paused on a fragment of debris, a human warship's hull, scorched and pocked, its armor layered like the rings of a tree. Each stratum told a story. Lead plating from a 21st century bullet, titanium from a Mars rover, nanosteel from a failed fusion reactor. Survival, iteration, defiance. He closed the file, dreading the storm to come. On Earth, engineers studied salvaged alien wreckage. A plasma cannon became a hospital reactor. Shield generators powered drought-stricken farms. No cheers, no parades, just a hum of welders and the glow of soldering irons. Somewhere, a child reassembled a broken drone, humming a lullaby from a nation that no longer existed. Above them all, the stars blinked cold and silent, unaware of the reckoning they'd invited. Word count *1000. Style *tight, atmospheric, emphasizing contrast between alien sterility and human grit. No named humans, no dialogue, only actions and systemic resolve. HFY core, unity, adaptability, and the quiet terror of a species that treats war as a craft. The consensus fleet descended on Mars like a storm of polished obsidian, their ships radiating sterile light, hulls unmarred by history. This was not war, it was pedagogy. Zortha's transmission echoed through Earth's atmosphere, a sonorous decree. Surrender or be simplified. Human satellites crackled with panicked whispers, governments debating in dead languages, generals exhaling into static. The reply was a single word, repeated in every dialect known and forgotten. Negotiate. The council laughed, a sound like ice cracking in vacuum. A single plasma lance lanced outward, annihilating humanity's lunar outpost in a flash of arrogant purity. The aliens did not notice the asteroid shifting. Railguns hidden in the rubble of Vesta's belt awoke, their barrels forged from hollowed comet cores, their ammunition scavenged from decommissioned orbital stations. Kinetic rods, crude, unguided, relentless, slammed into consensus flotilla at percentages of light speed. Shields rated to deflect antimatter bursts flared and died under the assault, their algorithms unprepared for weapons lacking finesse, lacking honor. Drones emerged next, stripped of paint and insignia, swarming from behind Phobos like gnats. They latched onto alien hulls, not with explosives, but electromagnetic pulses reverse-engineered from crash probes. A cruiser's engine array went dark, its crew scrambling to manuals they'd never read. Chaos unfolded in perfect silence. The consensus captains, trained in symmetrical warfare, expected formations, not this fractal madness. Human ships, patched with lunar Regulus shielding, engines burning mismatched fuels, darted like predators, feigning attacks on escorts to isolate carriers. One vessel, its hull still advertising a pre-war soda brand, rammed a disabled alien destroyer, ejecting its crew in life pod seconds before impact. The consensus demanded order, broadcasted ultimatums, but human comms were a cacophony of encrypted screams, folk music, and AI-generated poetry. A boarding party breached a human freighter only to find its corridors rigged with improvised plasma mines, fuel cells from civilian shuttles, detonators from children's toys. Zorth watched the tactical feeds, his mandibles trembling. Human ships adapted between volleys, rerouting power from life support to weapons, jamming sensors with broadcasts of ancient Earth wars. A damaged fighter spun debris into a consensus battleship's path, then pivoted to gut its thrusters. Another detonated its own reactor to blind a pursuing squadron. The council dismissed it as animalistic reflex, but Zorth traced patterns in the carnage. Every human loss taught the others. Here, shields flicker under radio bursts. Their alien hulls buckle at certain frequencies. By the battle's 7th hour, human drones began mimicking consensus transponders, sowing fratricide. Retreat was unthinkable, yet inevitable. The consensus fleet limped home, their hulls pockmarked with primitive slugs, their crews murmuring of ghosts. Zorth isolated a data fragment, security footage from a human warship's bridge. No crew visible, just a cracked screen displaying a live feed of Earth, its oceans and cities glowing under amber alert. A handwritten note taped to the console read, "Remember Madrid." The ink smudged by sweat. He cross-referenced the phrase. Madrid, a city annihilated in a 22nd century cobalt blast, rebuilt within a decade. The aliens archived it as a footnote. Humans, it seemed, etched scars into strategy. Debriefings were venomous. The council accused Zorth of hysteria, of polluting pure logic with organic bias. He played the footage again, a human cruiser, gutted and adrift, suddenly sparking to life as its AI transferred into a salvaged alien probe. They fight with death itself, he argued. The council hissed, decreeing the loss a statistical anomaly. Later, alone, Zorth accessed forbidden archives, studying ancient consensus wars. Victories were clean, decisive. Defeats expunged. Humanity's record was a tapestry of defeats woven into survival. He deleted his search logs, dreading the weight of revelation. On Earth, engineers dissected the wreckage of Consensus Scout ship. Its reactor became a power plant for Nairobi. Its navigation corps guided fishing fleets through acid rains. In a bunker beneath what was once Beijing, A colonel stared at holograms of the retreating alien armada. "They'll return," she muttered. Across the globe, 1,000 anonymous voices echoed her, not in fear but anticipation. Factories converted to produce railgun coils. Schools taught plasma physics. Farmers stockpiled sulfur for munitions. The moon's corpse still smoldered, its craters now stamped with human footprints. Above it all, the stars twitched, their secrets unraveling. Word count *1000. Style * relentless pacing. Sensory contrasts, alien sterility versus human chaos. No-name characters. Victory through collective sacrifice and anarchic ingenuity. HFY core. Humanity's weakness, adaptability, and perfection as existential threat to stagnant perfection. Section 3. The Consensus's second armada arrived not as a fleet, but a monument. Ships the size of continents glitter with weaponized art. Gravity wells shaped into hymns. Plasma rays tuned to annihilate hope. This time, there were no demands, no theatrics. The Council's orders were absolute. Reduce Earth to ash, salt the orbitals. Zorith, tasked with observing, diverted a sliver of data to human channels. A test. Would they exploit the breach? Beg for mercy? The reply was a burst of ancient text, translated into 1,000 alien tongues. Know your enemy as yourself. The Council ignored it. Humanity weaponized philosophy. Guerrilla tactics began before the first shot. Human ships, cloaked in salvaged consensus stealth tech, lurked in asteroid shadows. They struck supply convoys, not with fire, but sabotage, hacking life support systems to play nursery rhymes, corrupting NAV computers with fractal graffiti. Alien crews, conditioned for orderly war, buckled under the dissonance. A dreadnought's AI, infected with a human logic virus, mistook its own hangar bay for a target. The resulting explosion lit Saturn's rings with funeral sparks. The Consensus retaliated with planet breakers, rods of compressed star matter designed to core worlds. Humanity countered with gravity slingshots, repurposed mining rigs hurling asteroids into projectiles' paths. Debris cascaded, igniting atmospheres with radioactive hail. Human cities burned, but their orbital defenses thickened. A factory on Europa, staffed by engineers surviving on algae and rage, churned out drones faster than the aliens could tally them. Each wave learned, swarmed the rod launchers, overload sensors with static, die screaming in the void. Zorith monitored the butchery, transfixed. Human ships fought like living things, shedding armor to dodge, sacrificing limbs to strike. A frigate missing its stern-rigged solar sails from crew quarters bedding, riding a solar flare to ram a consensus carrier. Boarding parties found human airlocks welded shut, corridors flooded with methane from ruptured fuel lines. One Marine's helmet cam caught a final transmission, a human soldier, faceless behind a cracked visor, detonating a grenade made from alien sidearm parts. The feed died with a lullaby. The Council's resolve frayed. Crews reported phantom contacts, hallucinations of human warships materializing in blind spots. A destroyer captain, convinced his medics were infiltrators, purged half his staff. Paranoia metastasized. Meanwhile, human engineers dissected a captured plasma cannon, transforming it into a terraforming tool that reignited Mars' dead core. Atmospheric processors, intended to glass continents, instead seeded algae blooms in dead oceans. The aliens raged at the perversion. Zorith found the pattern. Human tactics were fractal, each defeat branching into adaptations. When consensus sensors evolved to track stealth ships, humans deployed drones mimicking civilian vessels, forcing aliens to choose between massacring innocents or eating missiles. They chose the latter. Survivors broadcast the carnage, etching the consensus as butchers in 1,000 alien cultures. Sympathy stirred in distant systems. The Council, sensing rot, ordered Zorith to deploy the flagship Singularity Cannon, a black hole generator meant to erase Earth's system. Humanity's response was elegance through absurdity. A swarm of kamikaze drones, piloted by clone AI fragments, converged on the cannon. Consensus point defense shredded them, but the drone's debris formed a perfect Lagrange net, reflecting the black hole's hawking radiation back into flagship. The resulting feedback loop cracked the ship's spine. Escape pods jettisoned, only to be towed to safety by human tugs. No survivors were taken, only messages. We don't collect trophies. In the Council's chambers, Zorth projected the battle's final moments. The singularity cannons collapse, human ships rescuing alien crews, the flagship's wreckage repurposed into a deep space hospital. You see savagery, he hissed. I see a species that turns guns into scalpels. The Council accused him of weakness. He replayed a human transmission intercepted mid-battle. A chorus of voices, young and old, singing a dirge in a dead language. Beneath the melody, a cadence of coordinates. The location of a dying consensus colony ship ambushed by pirates. Humanity had diverted a destroyer to save them. Silence, thicker than vacuum. The Council's certainty wavered. Zorth closed his report with a human axiom, scrawled on a salvage hull fragment. War is an art, and all art is theft. On Earth, factories hummed. Alien shield generators powered refugee domes. Plasma cores melted polar ice for fresh water. In the ruins of a lunar base, a child's holographic doodle flickered. A stick-figure consensus soldier shaking hands with a human. Above Mars, the stars watched, wary. The galaxy's balance had shifted, not through strength, but through a species that redefined both. Word count asterisk 1000. Style asterisk high intensity. Cerebral warfare contrasting alien grandeur with human cunning. Tactical chaos as a reflection of cultural ethos. HFY core. Humanity's ability to weaponize empathy and entropy, turning the enemy's might into their own mitosis. The consensus's retreat was neither orderly nor dignified. Ships limped home, their holds heavy with wounded and data logs choked by paradox. Zorth requested an audience with the Council, bearing no weapons, only a single file. Footage of human medics treating alien burns with nanite foam, engineers grafting consensus shield tech onto refugee transports. The Council's chamber, once a cathedral of certainty, hummed with static. They spared us, Zora said. Now ask yourselves, why? Earth's delegation arrived in a salvage freighter, its hull a quilt of alien alloy and Martian iron. No flags adorned its sides, no emissaries emerged in finery. Instead, a feed open, a montage of human history. Not conquests or inventions, but graveyards replanted as forests, radiation zones reborn as wetlands, warships melted into wind turbines. A voice, synthesized from a chorus of ages, stated, "You studied our capacity for violence. You never asked why we hate it." The Council demanded justification. Why shield consensus colonies from a supernova? Why rescue crews who glass cities? Humanity's reply was a live feed from their outer colonies. Children building model ships from alien wreckage. Engineers teaching consensus refugees to farm Venusian fungus. You wage war to dominate, the voice intoned. We wage it to survive, and survival requires neighbors. Zorth watched the Council's resolve crumble, their certainty eroded by a species that fought to preserve, not eradicate. Talks began in dead airspace, a derelict station halfway between Earth and the consensus homeworld. Human negotiators brought no terms, only questions. Asterisk, how many of your wars were fought in fear? How many enemies did you create to feel safe? Asterisk, the Council had no answers. Humanity shared schematics, not for weapons, but shared defense grids, terraforming templates, neural nets to heal PTSD. Alien analysts dissected the data for traps, finding only annotations in 100 languages. Asterisk, this one's for my daughter. This one's for yours. Asterisk. Zorth accessed the supernova logs. Humanity's deep-range sensors had detected the dying star decades prior. While the consensus waged vanity war, human engineers repurposed stolen shield tech into a galactic-scale deflector array. They saved 1 trillion lives, then buried the achievement under municipal archives. No monuments, no demands for tribute. When questioned, a human engineer shrugged on camera. We got practice rebuilding after fires. The Council dissolved within hours. New alliances formed, not through conquest, but through shared shame. Consensus worlds, now free to question, unearthed buried histories. Genocides whitewashed as triumphs, dissenters erased as inefficiencies. Humanity's example became a mirror, reflecting rot they'd ignored for millennia. Zorith, tasked with drafting a new charter, included human axioms. Aster the enemy's need is your own. Strength is the choice not to use it. Asterisk. On Earth, alien emissaries walked irradiated beaches, watching engineers sculpt dead coral into living reefs. A consensus admiral, his carapace still scorched from battle, asked a human technician why they'd rejected vengeance. The tech gestured to a drone salvaging landmines from a seabed. Hate's too heavy. Slows down the work. The admiral sent his sidearm into a smelter, then joined the dredging. Years later, the galaxy's first joint colony rose on a once barren moon. Its foundations were consensus alloys, its power grid fused with human fusion cores. Children, human and alien, tended gardens grown from Earth soil and Zoritha's homeworld spores. The station's archive held every war log, every atrocity, unedited. Visitors marveled not at humanity's might, but their restraint. Weapons dismantled into tools, victory measured in share harvests. Zoritha's final transmission to Earth was a single word untranslated from a species' ancestral tongue, Kara. It meant both teacher and storm. Humanity replied with a gift, a telescope array trained not on threats, but supernova nurseries. The accompanying note read, asterisk keep looking up. So do we, asterisk. In the dark between stars, relic of the old consensus lingered, some still whispering of humanity's weakness. Few listened. The galaxy had learned a new truth. To underestimate humanity was not to fear their cruelty, but to misunderstand their grace. Wars would come again, but never the same. The lesson held. Word count asterisk 1000. Style asterisk reflective. Dialogue-free resolution emphasizing thematic contrast. Alien decay versus human renewal. Action speeches. Systemic change. Individual heroism. HFY core. Humanity's victory lies in redefining strength as a capacity to choose mercy, transforming enemies into heirs.